In this course segment, I'd like to concentrate on seeing like your camera. Now, if you've ever had any photographic instruction, I'm sure you've been taught this, but as many times as we've been told this, it's never enough. And there's a very good reason for this, that we really need to focus on seeing like your camera, and particularly avoiding areas like clutter, dead space, and little visible detail. All these images and some other examples we'll look at all have issues with clutter, dead space, and little visible detail. Why is it that we as humans have such a hard time with this concept of seeing like our camera? And the answer is that our eye and our mind conspire together to just completely blot out from our mind, from our consciousness, clutter, dead space, and little visible detail. Let me show you some examples. Here's a classic image of an autumn shot with some great colors. When you first see it, you go, wow, that's impressive. But when you really look at the composition, you realize that really the only good part of this image compositionally is this portion right here, where things are well separated. You know, the bright aspen trees from the mountain and a little bit of nice blue sky up here. But particularly the foreground, this is all area of clutter. Notice the spruce tree has little separation from the background. In fact, the spruce trees are overlapping and the foreground willows are overlapping on top of this. There's detail, but it's not really visible in here. So lots of area of clutter. This image is dominated by clutter. Here's a similar image, which has a kind of the same challenge. It's very visibly compelling when you first look at it, but really it's the upper third of the image that carries it in terms of a composition. The lower two-thirds of the image in the foreground, lots of detail and clutter in here. And when our mind looks at this and we remember the scene, this is what we remember in all the color. But compositionally, this is very weak. Here's a nice comparison shot of an image. This is Ocracoke Lighthouse on Ocracoke Island on the Outer Banks. Love to visit this, do it every winter. And this image on the left is not as good a composition as the one on the right, and the reason is because of this dead space here. Notice how this dead space just kills these eye lines that come down here, these shadows and the edges of the boardwalk all here, they're just killed right here. Where this, boom, we got the eye line all the way along. When you remember this shot, when you look at this, even when you're taking the photograph, your eye and your mind will conspire, right, to hide that from you. This is Ski Lac Lake in the winter. Again, color compelling in terms of looking at the image, but look at all the dead spaces here. First in the sky, and there's almost no distinguishing detail or separation between the sky and the mountain. And the whole foreground here is all clutter and overlapping object elements or image elements. And there's detail, but a lot of it's not very visible. So it doesn't really contribute to the composition. Oh, and this is a classic challenge and problem with dead space. And these are the two most common areas where you see this. Dead space in the sky where there's no detail in the sky and in the water. Particularly when you're shooting in places like Alaska, there's always sky and there's always water, and you've got to make sure there's good detail. But a large portion of this image just has no contribution whatsoever. And just a little bit of problem down here, of course, with the bushes and the edges of the trees here where there's not a lot of detail that's actually visible. And of course, the top of the house needs to be cropped out. And this is one of my favorite clutter images. And I remember shooting this image, Zip and I, and there's the lovely Zip down there on the path. This is the Resurrection Pass Trail, one of my 50 hikes in the Kenai Peninsula. It's in my book. And I remember this, walking along this, it was a 21-mile hike along the Resurrection River Trail. And I remember seeing, and in my mind's eye, I remember Zip, I remember the colors, the fall leaves, the trail, and my mind and eye just completely blocked out all of this. And it'll happen so often unless you're really, really aware of it. So it's the classic clutter image. And then upper left here is you look at this and you see, oh, those great ski tracks, and isn't it fun? But it doesn't make a very good photograph. Far better is the single trail through the snow with the lovely Zip having fun diving up and down into the snow. And you might be thinking, based upon our discussion, well, how about this big white area here? Is that dead space? No, because of the detail. See, this fine detail here is very interesting to look at. And then we've got the classic backlit image, right? Where here I'm looking down on Lost Lake from the Skyline Hike in the Kenai Peninsula. And I remember seeing this nice high contrast scene. And what comes out in the photograph is all this dead space because this is so backlit. And the foreground here, I remember seeing that. My mind and eye just completely ignored that in the scene. Very common. And this, of course, is one of the worst examples of having a silhouette that dominates most of the portion of the image. The lower half of this image is completely without detail because of this completely silhouetted foreground. Now, don't misunderstand me. Not all silhouettes are bad. In fact, silhouettes can be very compelling. They just need to be a minor portion of the image, such as this image that I shot from my front porch across Kachemak Bay with a beautiful sunrise rainbow. And notice the silhouette, very dark silhouette, but it's a very minimal portion of the image with a very interesting eye line with a lot of detail along the edge. So always look for clutter, look for dead space, look at the areas of little visible detail, and try to eliminate them from your picture. You want to make sure that all areas of your image are contributing to your composition.